I have a question for you. Have you ever gone through a loss that didn't just change your circumstances, but it changed the direction of your entire life? You know, when things like this happen, it's hard for us to find our footing. Sometimes the hardest part of healing isn't actually surviving what happened, it's learning how to live after that has actually changed you. Whether you're navigating loss, a heartbreak, a trauma, or a major life change, you could be navigating this space and you're feeling a sense of safety and identity being eroded. This is what I call the space in between. You're not quite where you used to be, but you're definitely not where you see yourself in the future or you don't feel fully healed. Maybe you've started setting boundaries or speaking up for yourself, or maybe you're still navigating that devastating loss and trying to make sense of who you can be in the world without who you were before. Choosing yourself looks different for many of us, but what we do know is that it doesn't have to be a lonely, isolating journey. That's why I'm inviting you to my new group coaching Self-Respect Circle. On Saturday, August 22nd, you have an opportunity to work together with me and women of like mind and like heart. We're going to come together online and strengthen your self-trust and create more inner safety so you can feel grounded in the choices you're making moving forward. Just visit playwiththeworld.com and click on the events page to get more information. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to She Saves Herself, a podcast for emotional abuse survivors who have had enough. I'm your host, Shannon Kaiser. You'll find support and self-love strategies to help strengthen and reclaim your voice and power. Here, we move from survival into sovereignty. Let's dive into today's show. Welcome to the She Saves Herself podcast. We have such a exciting topic today, and it's an important topic. And it is something that I see so many of us going through in my community and with my clients and readers reaching out. It seems now more than ever, so many of us are processing some things that we just can't make full sense of. And that's where we're going today. We're going to be talking more about grief. And we have Erin Barbosa here, and she is the founder of Lion Flower Studio, where she helps women move through grief with creativity and connection and care. And that is exactly why we have her here today, because it's so important to bring more compassion to the grief space. And there's a lot of things that I think we're missing. And there's a lot of self-blame that happens. And so we're going to move through this with compassion and joy. And Erin is here today. She has more than a decade of trauma-informed therapy work behind her. And she's now bringing together lived experience. When her team reached out to me, I was like, we have to get her on the show, and we have to get her on the show right now. So here she is. Without further ado, hello, Erin. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. It's just a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's really exciting to talk to you because some of the work you're doing in the world is so important. I'd like to first start by what brought you to this and kind of share with listeners what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, I have a kind of interesting career history. I actually started working in television before I became a therapist. I worked for 5 years. I was a NBC page, and then I worked for Oprah and storytelling. And then I realized that I loved to hear women's stories, and I knew how meaningful it was just to be present with women and listen to their experiences. When I was working on the show, I noticed that in myself, and I decided when the show ended that I went back to school and to become a therapist. And so I've done that for 15 years now. And what really brought me to grief coaching and to shifting my work to Lion Flower is my own personal life shattering loss. And I do like to put a trigger warning here that I lost my very best friend to suicide. And so that really, it really shattered me open, both, personally, but also professionally, because it really shifted how I saw the gaps. I really just saw up close and personal the gaps in what our treatment has to offer, and wanted to help be a part of expanding what offerings could be out in the world.
Yeah, thank you for sharing it. And I'm so sorry for such a deep loss because when we lose people that are closest to us, it can change our whole entire identity. in the
Yes.
sense. And I'd like to maybe go in a little bit more of that because that's a lot of the work that you're focusing on is it's not just we're grieving the loss of a loved one, it's we're grieving parts of ourselves. How do we move forward? What's our life look like? But also who we were when that person or the loss was before the loss.
Yeah, I talk about reorienting to the new world. It's like when someone who we have that kind of deep attachment to, we lose them, we're reorienting to a new world without them. And then to all of our beliefs that we had before the loss. And so, yeah, I just, there was a lot that shifted in me. And I was finding that for me personally in my journey, creativity became such a part of bringing me back to life. I really needed like nature and creativity. That was like kind of the combo. And if I could put the two together, it was like even more ideal. And so writing was huge for me. And I just wanted to kind of give more of those opportunities for women to have, different strategies. And again, it's not that I have rejected treatment by any means. It's so important, treatment, but and medication, psychiatry, and good therapies, all of those things. But I also saw that there are other pieces of the puzzle that I wanted to kind of tackle, and that was really around creativity, connection, and finding our way. What makes us alive again? What brings that life back into our system?
And how did like the creative process, share a little bit more about how you came to that in your grief state?
Yeah, well, it's so interesting. I actually started writing when she got really sick. So she was really sick about 6 months before she died. And I visited her, and it was really it was traumatic. And so my body, I had like a full body trauma response. I was literally throwing up every day. I was so ill with it. My body was having this huge response to what I experienced with her. And when I kind of stepped back from my clients. I did what I needed to do. That was all very clear. But I realized that I just needed for my own family and to really take care of myself and nurture myself. I needed to pour into myself. And I just started writing. And I wrote and wrote. And within like 6 months, I had a draft of a book called I'm Not Sure I'm a Therapist Anymore. And it was just my kind of real time experience of what it was like to move through that profound loss.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that too, because I relate so much. My heart is like speaking here for you because I know that I went through that too. People on She Saves Herself are aware, but when I turned to the writing, it's like I wrote myself through the pain, and that's how it helped heal. And then sharing that work with others is often part of it. And it seems to me that there became a purpose much deeper within all this pain. When you're in it, though, it's not like we're thinking, I'm going to help people, I'm going to get through this. Or was that your process?
Yeah, no, it what really I realized, that writing the memoir was really about saving myself. It was really for me. And, I'm not even sure if I'll ever publish it or, kind of put it out into the world. I'm not sure, or maybe pieces, or, we'll have to see how it evolves. But
I think you
I
should, by the way.
Thanks. It's a journey of my own recovery, and it was a lot of journals that I compiled that were prior to, my prior recovery journal. When you're a therapist, you um you have to be doing your own healing work. You have to be in your own recovery work, or you're really putting your patients in harm's way. And so I have my own, and this is also another trigger warning, but I have a history of childhood sexual abuse. And so I had been kind of chronicling my treatment for that when she got really sick. So all of that was all kind of wrapped up together. And it was a place that I could share my truth, what I was going through, and it's the expression. And what I like to talk to women about when it comes to creativity is there's always questions about, like what medium, what are you doing for creativity, like was it writing or painting or singing? And I say, it's not about what you're doing. It's about, do you have autonomy and play so it can be cooking, gardening. If it has where you have choice and freedom and you can be playful with it, that's what makes something creative. That's what brings creative health to somebody. And so that's really what it was for me, is that writing was a place where I could play with myself in a well, that
I
might
get
sound
it. No, it's my blog is called Play
which
with
is
the
also
World. So that's why I was like, oh, you're playing. So it's
yes,
perfect. Yeah. So
yes,
I didn't take it that way,
exactly.
but that's fun too.
Good. Well, there's nothing wrong with that either. I think we
Yes.
wanted to maybe get into, intimacy and connection. And so, that could be a good segue if you wanted to go that
Well, that's
direction.
exactly what I was thinking is it's so important to kind of find the joy even in that kind of dark time, but it's not like I'm seeking joy. It's just I'm going to find the moments that I can connect. And what I'm really hearing about what you're saying, and I think so many people and women go through this, if we have a profound loss, it almost like rips apart a part of you on the inside where you really have to look inward. And when you do, the healing becomes more of an embodied experience and you learn the deeper lessons. And one thing I'm really getting to, especially with what you said, yeah, I think playing with yourself, in any way, but what I'm really getting at here is the intimacy aspect of trauma is so important, and I don't think it's discussed enough in our grief healing circles, even with therapists. I have clients and I have friends and people I know and readers of books that have reached out, and they feel alone and they feel like something's wrong with them because they're either not as sexual as their partner wants them to be, or they're feeling coerced and they're grieving. And sometimes they don't even know exactly what they're grieving. And I want to get into that. So let's unpack that a little more.
Yeah. No, I think this topic is so important. And, I like to talk about how, you know, it's intimacy. We sometimes think it starts with sex, and really what it does for me is it starts with safety. We need to find that safety. And when we've experienced trauma, our nervous system loses that safety. And so the kind of path back, if that's what we're looking for, to intimacy and connection again, is to what feels safe in my body. And so I often I talk about baby chick energy. I love that just analogy. You kind of just know right away. It's just being gentle and um, compassionate, and that when we treat ourselves like a baby chick that just needs that love and care, we can kind of ask ourselves those questions of like, what does love and care look like for me? What's baby chick energy for me? And oftentimes we need non-sexual physical touch. We need held. We need just hand holding, or, being, a bear hug, or even deep pressure, can really like help reset that nervous system and help find that safety in the body again.
Man, that feels so good. And my mom has chickens, and I've seen lots of baby chicks in my life, and you just want to hold them. They're so tender, but it's such a great analogy and metaphor in the sense that we all have that parts of ourselves, and it's kind of like the inner child that hasn't fully allowed itself to kind of be in the world, because there are parts of us that I don't think we address enough that don't feel safe. And I think this connection is so important, because it's really interesting, because what if when you're grieving, you're realizing, and people are listening and they're like, okay, yeah, it is safety. These are great tips. But what if they start to recognize they don't feel safe in their relationship with their partner?
Yeah, and it's so important to try to pick up those cues and hear them from your body. I mean, a lot of times we've been conditioned to override those cues in our bodies that we're overwhelmed, or that there is a lack of safety. And that's just, all the fawn response, or I'm sure that your listeners might know about. But there's all these ways that we keep ourselves safe, but we have to kind of keep connecting into what is it that I'm feeling inside me internally. And just having that relationship with your inner world is so protective. But and then also finding other women that you can, I like to say, put down your armor with. And so if you're starting to notice that with your partner that you have some armor, you're armored up, you're not feeling those cues of safety, then finding where are those places, where are the relationships in your life where you can exhale, where you can put down the armor, where you can laugh till you cry or cry till you laugh. Those are the kind of relationships that can help guide us and support us when we might be feeling like our partner, relationship with our intimate partner isn't feeling safe.
I think this is so important too, because you touched on a few key things. One is really listening to the body. And we talked about that a little earlier, how our body, you had visceral experience of actually throwing up. And I think this
Yeah.
happens a lot when we are in situations that either feel traumatic or our body is giving us clues to the outside world. Learning how to recognize that, I think I've seen in my own life has literally saved my life. And it sounds like it's helped you process grief as well. How are some ways that women, especially, can start to tune in because we have been trained to override that? We live in a world that's
Yeah.
saying constantly, like, put others' needs first. And there's this conditioning that we're having to, like, peel back and unthread. What are some very simple, easy ways people can start just returning inward?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's lots of ways that we can connect with our body that through movement, through song. I like to I again because I come back to creativity. Singing is something that we can actually like help reconnect with the body and breath in a way that actually give signals of safety to the body. And so, that's just kind of one little, if you're looking for tips and tricks, is like finding that time where you can sing with yourself. And it's not about how you sound or performing. It's about being in connection with that breath and that expression of yourself. So that's one of the things I did in my recovery journey also was I would sing. I sang, every Wednesday morning. I had a coach who I was working with who was supporting me in my process of I would sing Taylor Swift, I would sing Noah Kahan, Olivia Dean. I was just literally singing my favorite songs that were meaningful to me. And that process really did help me reconnect with my body and reconnect with my breath in a way that was playful and had safety with it.
Yeah, it reminds me of when we're children, we kind of sing and skip down the street and we're not worried about like how good our voice is. And, sometimes I know I used to pretend that I was like a famous singer and make my family, record. I think a lot of us have done that. And there's something very special because what I'm getting about what you're saying is there's an inner child embodiment. It's almost like you're telling your inner child we're safe, we're okay, we're in this together. It's the subtle undertone there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I had to do a lot of that inner child work for a long time to really let my inner child know, like, I'll give an example of like elevators might have been a place where I would feel a sense of feeling trapped, and I could feel that signal in my body that I didn't like that I might be trapped or could get trapped. And but being able to find in notice that first, right, and notice that was, and make the connections to why I have that kind of those fears. Going through that process was really and I did a lot of treatment to, EMDR and brain spotting and IFS, different, modalities that might be familiar to some of your listeners, that really helped me to move trauma out of the body and find that safety again. And so, yeah, I think you can connect with those warning signals, and then go internally and learn what they're trying to tell you. Our body is just this so wise. It tells us so much if we can listen.
Absolutely. Our bodies are, in my own recovery journey too, my body became like my best friend by learning how to listen to it and understand both what it was trying to protect me from, but also keep me expanded and open to in the world. And I think when we're talking about loss, what I'm hearing from you too is there's so many different modalities, and it's not one way is the right way. It's literally about trusting your own self to see which feels right. You sang,
Yeah.
but you also did much deeper work. I worked with a trauma therapist as well. And I think what I'm getting at is I'm putting my kind of myself and the listener's point of view. And I think sometimes we feel like there's a there to get to. And I think sometimes when we're in it and grieving, there needs to be an expiration date. And we put a lot of like shame and blame on ourselves, like I'm not healed. And I hear so often, I already know this or I should do this, not like what you're saying, but with our process, we're so hard on ourselves.
Oh, yes. Oh, 100%. We dig in, there's all these cultural messages around kind of needing fixed and get to back to functioning. And even our medical system, we have all assessment and diagnosis and all of that is all an important part of it, but we can get caught up in that. And I think what I've learned is that, I like to talk about healing is getting to know who you're becoming. It's being able to be in relationship with who you are as this evolving, you're self-evolving. And that, it just kind of widens what healing is, and it kind of lets it be an ongoing process instead of, trying to get to some destination.
It is such a good mantra, even because I think we sometimes feel like healing has to mean we are fixing, saving, and it's not that at all. I think healing is truly living. To be on a healing journey is really to be growing. You're allowing yourself to learn a new
Yeah.
layer. And so, as you position it that way, it's so important because we are all on a healing journey no matter what. And I think that when we are grieving, let's return it back to that for a moment because we don't always grieve the loss of someone who's like maybe passed on. Sometimes it's the loss of a job or an identity that we had in a career. Grieving comes even, and what I'm seeing so often is, and especially with many of the women I work with, we're in a space in between where you've started to put up boundaries. You've started to say, okay, I'm no longer going to have these situations that, when you do start doing the work, trauma work and work with therapists, you're like, oh, I start taking care of myself better. And you start putting up these parameters and seeing where you can be stronger in your life. And when that happens, a lot of things fall away. And when that happens, we almost grieve the loss of who we were in the world because we're no longer operating in that space. And I wanted to talk about that and how you have worked with people in the past and maybe how you bring your current therapies in for people who are in that space in between.
Yeah, I think that we so much in our culture is about grief is related to losing a loved one, which of course is kind of the first thing we think of. But so often there are health diagnoses that come up, or divorce, or breakups, friendship breakups. There's so many ways that loss is also about just the life we imagined that no longer is possible. And that is, again, an expanded definition of grief that gives space for so many different experiences and allows for different paths to healing.
Yeah, it sure does. And I think if we open up to, it's almost like when you said that, I thought we're almost always grieving. Even when you're happy, there's something we're always losing because that's part of life. Even Eastern philosophies talk on that, a pet dying, even just moving, anything. And I think if we start to look at grief not as this big, heavy thing that's making us feel like bogged down, we can start to look at it as part of the human experience. I think we can really open up to that creativity more. Have you seen that with working with people?
Yeah, definitely. I think exactly what you said, that we can really open it up to being just a part of the human experience. And when we do that, we step away from pathologizing. We step away from kind of, I like to say, I don't want to pathologize pain anymore. I want to witness it. I want to help women tell their stories for sometimes just for themselves, but sometimes to express and share with others. But I think that when we do look at grief and loss as a natural part of life, we can find more community and support from each other in it.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because there's like all these little light bulbs going off of how everything connects with what you said. And one of the biggest pieces that I think is missing, we talk about grief, but we don't talk enough about how we need connection. And a lot of times
Yeah.
we're grieving the loss of a connection. But what's that bridge in between of letting new connections kind of help mend the broken heart?
Yeah, I think that's so important. I like to say connection is protection, and that's both connection to your inner world, but also connection to other supports in your life that, we are we're social beings. We need each other's nervous systems to regulate. So I kind of like to say community care over self-care. And self-care, amazing. We need it to connect with ourselves and our inner world. Community care, we need to regulate with each other so that we can hold each other together. And
True.
so when we work with a coach or when we work with a therapist or when we find a support group or we do a book club with our friends, all these different places are places where we can connect, hopefully put down our armor and really be able to share what's heavy, and that we're not supposed to carry this stuff alone. We're not designed to do that.
No, we're not. And it's like sharing because you care. But I've seen so often, and I know in my own journey, it can be very isolating, that healing process, especially when people around you are either kind of toxic positivity, like get over it already, or, there's just the outside world is going to have a lot of noise. And so there is a part, and I'm wondering if you've seen this with people you work with, because there's different layers of healing, but when they almost go inward and then they're like hermiting and isolating, but they're healing. It's a deep healing
Yeah.
spiritual experience, if you will. Maybe they start reaching out slowly, but there's that gap in between where they start to find peace and comfort in their routine of I can protect myself if they've come out of trauma or a big extreme loss. And integrating back in the world is one of the hardest things that I see with clients, and I'm sure you too. And that's one, creativity where it can help, but there's a missing piece there about allowing people. And what do you think that missing piece is to go from I have healed, but I don't necessarily feel safe in the outside world yet? What would you suggest to
Yeah.
someone who's in that position?
I think that's such a good question. I think I like to say like that peace is a practice. We need to practice it, and that's in our relationships. We need to be able to practice with each other. What does peace look like for you? Sometimes it's having that space and time for ourselves, but other times it's having that space and time to connect. And if we're feeling like the outside world isn't safe, we might need to keep listening to that, right? Like, and finding who are the people in our world where we do feel safe and letting those be the guides out, right? And I also try to tell people not to kind of try to make everything happen all at once. Like you said, things happen in layers, and we're always kind of unfolding. And so, knowing that, like, if something isn't feeling safe for your system right now, not to push yourself, like
Yeah.
that you can give yourself that time to have that baby chick energy if you need it, and then coming back to the trust that your body will eventually find its way. It's that self-trust and finding your way out, that I think is so, it can be so meaningful.
Yeah, I'm definitely hearing the trust and trusting the journey, trusting the process, and just also being where you are. So it's like taking away the
Yeah.
shame and the blame that often comes in our mental capacity. And it's like that inner voice and the critic that's like always telling you that even it's supposed to look a certain way. But what I'm really getting is grief is not a linear thing, no, neither is healing.
No, yeah.
And circling back to one of the things that you shared, I think there is a power of story. It's also what helped you. Whether we
Mhm.
share our stories, we write the memoirs or write our books or poetry or songs, it's not
Yeah.
necessarily about sharing it outside with the world. That could be a layer, but really it's about sharing your heart on the page, not just with writing. I want to talk more about the power of story and how you see women transform when they step into that.
Yeah, I think when we can kind of claim our experience through our story and really be able to, so often we, at least in my experience, I was unraveling my history in my adulthood, right? So there was aspects of my childhood history that I didn't have active memory of, right? But as I kind of unraveled my story, I I began to understand what kind of led me down the journey I was on. I think I became a therapist so that I could heal myself. Now I know that. I didn't know that at the time when I made that transition. I was just like, I love hearing women's stories and it makes such a difference when you listen, which was all true. But now I know in hindsight, oh my gosh, I was learning for myself how to manage my own anxiety and depression and CPTSD that I had been struggling with for my life, but didn't really know. And so I think that I was able to kind of, through writing my memoir, have more understanding of that whole process and really claim my resilience and my survivor. Like I was able to claim myself as a survivor in a way that I'm not sure I would have been able to do if I wasn't telling my story.
Oh man, that's like so refreshing and beautiful to hear the way you put that all together. In my own personal experience, I went through such a devastating loss. The person's like still alive in the world, but it was such a painful kind of parting in the sense, but it was dangerous as well. And so self-love is what I had to choose to move away from it. And in doing that, there was this deep realization of I can never put myself or be in a situation like this again. It doesn't matter how much love is there. And that led me back to the childhood conditioning or the things that were blocked out in childhood and like a whole deep inner world of I want to make sure that I understand the patterns that have put me in this. And it's not about blame. What I'm hearing with your story too is there's almost a reckoning. And I discovered buried childhood trauma memories that came back as well. And in understanding that, I was able to integrate it. And then I was able to be stronger than I ever thought possible. And I think that's what I'm hearing for your story too. And then that experience would not have been complete without the creativity part, though. Writing my own memoir through it or writing songs and poetry, even if it's just for me, that piece is so missing. We talk about it here on a surface level, but I think all of the layers you're sharing, it's almost a full circle where they all work together in tandem. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, well, first, I just want to say I'm sorry that happened to you, and I mean, what a beautiful story that you have taken and claimed now. This, and through your writing and through your creative process,
Thank
that you
you.
now you have this, platform, and I know that you're making a difference in so many women's lives. So I just want to really acknowledge that.
Thank
But
you.
yeah, I think that when we claim our stories, we have a chance to really make peace with our past, and we can find what safe relationship looks like. And sometimes it's said that trauma blocks love, but love heals trauma. So it's kind of this like paradox of like, well, how do we let the love in? And I think that sometimes we have to move the trauma out of the body for the space for the love to kind of re-enter. And so when I think about creativity, it really is, and this is more spiritual in nature, but I know that that's going to be okay with your audience. I really think of it as connecting in with my higher power, with the universe, kind of getting the downloads from a power greater than myself that is helping me to kind of alchemize my life into how I can then nourish the world. And
Yeah.
I really believe that when we're engaged in our inner world, we have the opportunity for that. And you've done that so beautifully. And that's the journey I'm on now too.
It's so special when you say it like that too, because it is a spiritual experience of allowing ourselves to connect. And like you said, your higher self, your higher power, that's the missing piece that I think sometimes when we keep trying to do it on our own, my faith is so much stronger now through that journey that I went through. I feel more connected to even my angel guides, and it's like so special. And I hear with you, my creativity is deeper. I literally feel like I just open up a channel and I'm letting it
Yeah.
flow. And so,
Yeah.
what are some ways that listeners can access that deeper divine connection if that's what they're seeking, or open up to that channeled experience of letting, themselves be in the creativity. What do you, in your actual therapy and process that you do with
Yeah.
your company, what are some of the ways you do that with people?
Yeah, so one of the ways, and again, everybody's journey is going to be their own and trusting your own system and process. But so I'll, speak to mine. And when I work with women, I'm like really kind of giving a very customized experience to like their personal needs and preferences and relationship with creativity. But all of that said, for me, connecting with nature is a really big part of being able to kind of connect in with the divine. And, so I remember one time saying to my mom on the phone, I'm just staring at the ants on the cement. Like it was just like I'm just watching ants. Like and I, like you would think I was just like in another world, but it was like that's what my system, what my body needed at that time, and kind of going from being someone who was very active and had an active career and mothering and all the things to just kind of staring at ants. It was a real big shift for me, but I think I needed that. I needed to look at those hydrangeas for, long stretches of time where I'm just looking at the intricate patterns of beauty and reconnecting with what makes this, world we're in so precious and so just really all the little miracles that are everywhere. And so
Yeah.
things like awe walks are things that I recommend, right? Where you are, I kind of do no headphone walks, I, call them, and where I'm just really trying to plug into what tiny miracles are all around me. And that for me is something that really, helps serve and nourish my system.
Yeah, and it's really about like you share getting back to our almost our ancestral lineage of the roots of like there wasn't all this bombardment of technology and stuff. They literally walked the earth barefoot, and there was this presence that I feel like we are missing in our culture today. So I love your all walk ideas. The tiny miracles is amazing. I spent last week off of like Instagram and most of social media intentionally. I did a week detox, never done that in my life. There was like a
Mm,
movement that was happening, and I made a
yeah.
promise to myself to go into nature like double the time I normally do because I usually walk my dog in nature. And I
Yeah.
woke up this morning feeling so happy and aligned more so than ever. I feel like my neurons and my whole entire serotonin is just flowing. I feel healthier, and it's like
Yes.
nature is healing. Nature and even the foods I'm eating are so just basically nature, and it's so powerful. So a testament to what you're saying, absolutely. And I think we can all do that daily. And it's almost like allowing yourself to be in the moment more is what I'm getting as well. And that's what creativity really allows us to do, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I love you sharing that. I about your detox process. My kids, they just came back this weekend, from 2 weeks of overnight camp, which was the first time they ever did that. They had been before for a week, but this was the first time they went for 2 weeks. But they, completely unplugged in nature for 2 weeks, and they came back and they're like different little humans. They're
Oh my
like
gosh, it's
their
so special
systems
to hear.
just get like a full reboot, and
Ah,
not that
yes.
obviously, I mean, we most of us in our, with our obligations and our limitations and the
Right.
responsibilities of our world, we can't just like go escape for 2 weeks completely, and
I think we all
stay in a
should. Let's just
cabin.
go do it.
So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Let's
If
do
you
it together.
can,
Let's just
do.
go kumbaya in the forest. But
If you
no, I
can,
get
for
it.
sure
So
do.
you
But
saw that
yeah,
tangible, like right in
yeah.
front. And how do they feel? Are they wanting to like jump back? I don't know. Age are they?
So they're 12 and 13. So yes, they definitely were like excited to be, get the devices returned.
Do you think
But
they'll have different habits though? Because for me, I don't. I already have new habits. Like once a day,
yes,
I'm going to be checking at.
I really do think so. And even heard a little bit of expression around it, around like how good they felt without it, and kind of
Yeah.
just kind of noticing for themselves. Um, and that's one of the things that I like to talk about too is our systems will, like, if we create a lot of restriction around something, like our systems are naturally then going to kind of be like, oh, that's like bad, and then it creates kind of compulsions with it, and then but when we kind of allow ourselves to reboot like that,
Yeah.
we can have brand new patterns and brand new ways that that we don't need to be as restrictive because we've now had this chance to reboot.
Yeah, the rebooting. I like that idea. There's that theme that comes up as we're talking today. It's like, yes, we're talking about grief, but we're also talking about moving through it, allowing yourself to be where you are. And it is a reboot. Things that happen in our life outside of ourselves give us an opportunity to reboot inside and realign with, is this, am I on track? Am I on path? And that's part of the healing. So when I hear everything, it really ties back to that with what you're saying. So it's this gift that you're giving us here today. And as we start to close out our session and our chat, I'd love to just kind of ask you a little bit deeper within the work that you see. I know that you've been a trauma therapist and now you're really working with people in creativity, but you come from TV and you come from like this place that's such an arc, and you've seen so many different facets of the world and the communities. What would you see the biggest area of opportunity for all of us in humanity is to move forward through our collective grief now that we've all been kind of going through, especially since 2020?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. I mean, I think for me to be able to say, like, I would love to see creative health be more prioritized, that we actually talk about what is your creative health. We don't really have language for that. But and kind of being able to help women understand that playfulness and that autonomy is actually essential for our bodies. We need that to help reset our autonomic nervous system. So I think if we could start having conversations about what is creative health for you,
Mhm.
I think it would be a really good thing.
Absolutely. I got full body goosebumps when you said that. So I'll ask you, what is creative health for you, Erin?
Oh, thank you. Well, creative health for me is definitely being able to plug into that greater, the universe's web of, wonder. And I think so, yeah, being able to plug into that, being able to connect with nature, um, really are kind of my two go-tos
It's
of,
so important.
yeah, how I keep myself creatively healthy.
It's good because nature, there's so much with nature, even going into nature, and then that is creative. And what I'm hearing too, just fascinating. So often when we think creativity, we think, oh, it's painting or like singing or like it's physical creativity. And so many people say, well, I'm not creative. But truly, I believe if you can breathe, we are creative because you didn't say anything about the tactic, and it's not about the tactic. It's about the way you're living in accordance with Earth is what I'm really getting as well.
Yeah, definitely. You said it
Yeah.
perfectly. I really do think that it's really important that we understand that creativity is not about the medium. It's not about the performance. It's not about talent. It's about
Yes.
play, autonomy. It's about,
Yeah.
yeah, feeling
And
connected
that's it. It's
internally and in
yes.
community with each other.
That's the brilliant part. And I think that we can all allow ourselves to tap into a creative, healthy experience. It's just as important as our physical health, our mental health. I think looking at creative health in a way of how am I nurturing my creative health today is something we can leave listeners with.
Yeah, yeah, great. I would love that. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, where can people find you? Share a little bit more about your website and anything else, and I'd love to
Oh, great.
chat.
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram at Lionflower Studio, and my website is lionflowerstudio.com. I have a link up. You can actually book directly a free consultation if you're interested in learning more about how I help women move through loss using creativity.
Yeah, and we will put those all in the show notes. I want to thank you so much for being here today. This was such an important and powerful conversation, and it's great to see the work you're doing in the world. And I just want to end off, if you don't see physically, she's got this beautiful, colorful flower painting behind her, and it's so creative and it's so full of
Oh,
joy and
let
love.
me Let me
Yeah.
show you one more thing. If I tilt up,
Yes.
you can see the sunflowers.
Yes. Oh my
So
God, it's so beautiful.
Lion Flower Studio is named in honor of my friend Melissa, who I lost, and she started coming to us as a sign. Her signs that she was bringing us were sunflowers, and so I also love the Annie DeFranco lyric. If you were born a lion, don't bother trying to act tame. And so I kind of saw the sunflower as it looked like a lion, like it's like a flower that's a lion, right? Like
Yeah.
visually. And
Oh
so
my
that's
gosh.
how lion flower came to be. And so these sunflowers above me.
They're
Oh,
gorgeous. And sunflower is my favorite flower. Anybody like who really knows me knows that like it's the most special thing in my life. And so I'm so glad that you share that. So no wonder we had to have you here at She Saves
of
Herself.
course, we have that connection then. We have our sunflower
Yeah,
connection.
it's perfect. Well, I would love to stay in touch with you. I'm always in your corner and I'm
Yeah.
thankful for all
Oh,
the work you're
thank
doing.
you.
Thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much, Shannon.
And thanks for tuning in to She Saves Herself. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for tuning in to She Saves Herself podcast. If this episode moved you, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs it. If you have a question for the show, visit shesavesherself.org and send it in through the contact page. I'd love to hear from you. And while you're there, you can go to donate and you can help the cause and help support emotional abuse survivors on their healing journey. Until next time, keep going and growing. And remember, you are your own rescue and you are so worth it.